How's this way? I want to share. Smachman. Alright. I want to share it with a few places, so we have it. I realized I erased WhatsApp because I was having issues with WhatsApp. I promised someone I would. Alright, we're just going to share it two more places. And then tweet it. Schkoich. Efter ich darf machen der ganze Tish auf Yiddish. Mal sehen. Hier ist WhatsApp. Schkoich. Alright, Schkoich. Alright, we ga Untitled met Shir Yichud from Montig. I didn't say, usually I say every day, Baruch Hashem, a few years already. Oh, it's snowing again. Usually flag zogen jeden Tag the Shir Yichud. And we ga Untitled as well. So if you have Sfaria, you can go to Sfaria. Machzor for Yom Kippur doesn't matter, Sfard or Ashkenaz. It's a minhagim of the night of Yom Kippur has their Shir Yichud, so Shir Yichud for Monday, Yom Sheni. V'niyavducho be'namosecha, daber malul gviroisecha, dar chishivchacha, ketsusam sapra, masecha, manoi roi meiro. It's a different, that's a payron roi meiro. I know like Arich Bas Sefer, Gitch Focus Oats Mimasaper, Chaike Loi Aloi Motsei, Vasachel Shadoi Loi Sikotsei, Velis Venu Soya Loi Ein Chaike, Mispar Shunov Loi Choker, Gam Ein Mispor, Legri Decha, Betzivoi Secha, Ois Kvoi Decho, I Zion, I should eat decho, v'chayloi rov p'nei chvoi decho, nuvoin v'chucham, hein lo yayda, v'echer v'chalash lo yayda, v'im yomer yishad tachlisoin, v'roichei lo v'maskin tohoi, uvoi v'emsa tachlis shivchoi, loi nemnes el richoi, v'ila ki lo yayda, erkoi achris pihi, Reishes darkoi, bimudi loi, chainu noi, chifiloyet in lachtoi v'chiki. Sapra elachektsoi starchai ehel, el Yisruel matwael ehel. Kakosev imril Elohim, anar masech Elohim. Marta amzi, Yutzarta li safrish mi isihilusi b'mitzrayim samti ali loisai leman tisaper esoitzoisai v'yavdechal kein asaper kasher drosh me'ahal seifer tahalil nafshi koyach maasecho b'chol keruvai eshaim kodshecho Vavorechecha b'chol inyonai b'chol libi oides adoinoi gam begroini roi memaisecha v'espia malei tehilosecha kifi yagid tehilosecha kol hayoim v'stif artecha v'imrano aziz narisecha v'sicha devri nifloisecha Vazkir tivcha v'tzidkoi secho Chasodecha gviroi sebecho Yadati ki gudalat al kol himoid gudalta Ki chol aloi hamim heim Lilam yomlim v'yriach ein bohem Hein loiv daihen gbilein meshivim lam alehem Haim emetivim v'ais tzuro Az yispalali Loyanim ki loyili Darshan b'chol life l'riach ein boy v'kurva Deinoy olam keroi voy. Hayoytzer kol. Hi Eloi Haini. Hi Osoni v'loi levada nachni. Amak lisoy v'tzoyin yudoi. Nivuraych shemoi ki la'olam chasdoi. Batzaloni me'oid nimtzaiso. Ki Tershecha loy azavta. V'sumid b'fini tehilosechem halalim. Shaim tiv artecho, aidata b'cho, b'chvoidecho, b'shosecho, afavodecho, ashe chavoidcho maloi chol horetz, chavoidcho al kol horetz, vavoi saini b'chari oisach, levadcho, lavoid ve'ain lezaritoch, gam anachni oischa levadecho, Avoid kevenes of nichabdecho. Hineni, v'hinaini al yichidecho, yomim v'laylo ahaydecho, v'ficheluni, v'bil v'vayni, she'ato levadcho, Eloi hayni al yichidecho, haydi manachni v'avadecho, Ein Techilol Raishi Secho, Vain Kaitz V'Sechlo Lachri Secho, Rishon V'Achroin Mibli Raishis, Mibli Achris, Vain Live Lehushes, Ein Kaitzel Gavi Secho, Vain Soif Laimek, Midoi Secho, Ein Lechasoivev, Vain Lechopayom, Alkeina Ischo, Chailoi Ruam, Ein Sad V'Tzelo Yatzliyecho, V'roicha v'roirech Loyim Tzicho, Ein Pile Sivi Voisecho, Vain Toich Mavdil Bainoisecho, Ein Chochma Asher Taidu Echo, Vain Mado Asher Yegiecho, V'lo Yasig Oischa Kol Mado, Vain Seichel Asher Yuven v'yayda mimcha mima v'aycha ut ato v'aychli kol mi'ima kol beruso. Right, we washed already. Had the whole cedar. We had. Did you know where the troben, the grapes went? So I have raisins here. We'll make the brocha. We ate a whole nice cedar, fish and soup and chicken. Jetzt halt man nun mit der Pyrus. Burech atwarinoi Elohaini melech u'olam b'rei 3 lights. We have all kinds of good fruit here. I was told that the sun-made raisins are the best. They have no cloyum, no vermin. So this is a tight one. I had some grape juice, and I had made the bracha on that. And I had some olive oil I put onto the chicken. I had chita and soira, wheat, and I had a little piece of barley. You got to check these the figs for bugs. There's an Indian with the figs. People are worried because the process of how a fig grows is that the wasp has to pollinate the fig and it dies in that process. But the emes is that's not a nafkamina because it's not a beria. So it's bottle. Whatever is left, it doesn't have a tam, and it's not a beria. So there's no isser unless you see a visible bug, then obviously it's an isser. With pomegranates. So I think we have all the shivas aminim now, right? Dates, figs, grapes, pomegranates, olive, and the wheat with the bread, and the barley. Those are the shivas aminim. We have also esrog. Few people. Yes, this esrog I got in the Medrash in Monroe. Someone, he's special. He wanted I should buy from him. The Indian with a chilas esrogim. It's a great zach. So that's it's a big Indian to eat esrog. I had already today, but we'll have by the Tish because it's a big Indian. So who didn't have esrog? Raisy, you had some? Moishari had estrog. Moishari, there was candy. Moishari, never a little candy. Candy. It's a yummy candy, no? Okay. So we have star fruit. Satmarov, he didn't make shechiyuni on any fruits because he said in America nothing goes out of season. That's why in Rosh Hashanah even though he had the fruit on the table also, al seminig, but he always had new bekasha second night Rosh Hashanah for shechiyuni. Because he held in America, there's nothing goes out of season. So it's not like it was in the Haim. Baron. We got this one here. Here's Grand Food Market. They have all different types of fruits here. This one I like. I was watching the video. The guy, he said he didn't like the dried kiwi. I like it. Make a tikkun, all the pears, but we don't follow the Seder and the Sefer creates Hadar. We don't follow because that was from the Kachats. So we eat the pears stamazoi. But the Svarim bring that's even though it's from the Meir Shovavim, that Badavka through the Chilas Pears is how we make the tikkun, and it's good. Right now I'm on an antibiotic, on a steroid, kind of it's addling my brain a little bit, I feel like. But it's good I'm not allowed to fast now. Hopefully Thursday I'll probably still try. I'll be done with the steroid by then. Shlomo, you had esrog? You want esrog candy?
I haven't slept for a week and my blood.
Alright, so this will help you sleep.
It's Rizal and Xanax.
Here, eat this.
No.
Alright. So we'll sing now. Satmarov would always sing Psalm 96 by the Bishvat Tish. So we'll sing that now. And find it here. I have this book from my friend the Berjan Aruv. I remember he came to my chasna. His father is the Ulam Aruv. So I used to spend a lot of time there by Ulam Aruv. Alright. I will Shiri Ladonai Shechudash Shiri Ladonai Kula Uretz Shiri Ladonai Barchi Shemoi Basri Miyoim Liyoim Yeshiyusoi Sapri Vagoyim Kvoidoi B'chol Amim Nifloisot Ki Godol Adonai Hello Moed Noir Hi Al Kol Elohim da 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 yeah da 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 Ki Godol Adonai Hello Moed Noir Hi Al Kol Elohim Ki Kol Elohehu Amim Elilim Vadinai Shemayim Osom I have a boy behudar lefonav, a boy besferes b'miktushai, huviladinoi mishpachis amim, huviladinoi kevoid v'boys, huviladinoi kvoid shemai, semin kevoil lechatzrisav, shtach viladinoi behadras kodesh, chilim uponav kol uretz. Ayim rivagoyim Adonai mulach Haftikain Taiv ubaltimoid Yudehin amim B'mahishurim B'da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da Yismechi Hashemayim V'sugail ha'uretz Yiram ha'yamum lo yaboy Yaloi sudai v'chol ha'sheboy Oz yiranani kol ha'tzayuan Lifnei Adonai kiva lishbay the uretz yishbay taiva b'tzedek v'yahamim b'menusoi. That's why this is the psalm that's picked, because it's Oz Yiranani Kol Hatzayuan. Then all the trees of the forest will sing. So that is why that psalm is picked for this occasion. And since we had Yismechir Shemayim, we'll sing the Pittsburgher Yismechir Shemayim. Everybody knows the Pittsburgher Yismechir Shemayim. Oy Yismechir Shemayim, Yismechir Shemayim, Yismechir Shemayim, V'sugail ha'oretz. Oy Yismechir Shemayim, Oy Yismechir Shemayim. Oy Yismechi Hashomayim, Oy V'sugail ha'uretz, Oy Yiramayam, 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 Imloyoy, Yiramayam, Oy Yiramayam, Yiramayam, Imloyoy, Oy Yiramayam, 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 Imloyoy, Yiramayam, 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 Imalayam, Voy Yismechi Hashomayim, Yismechi Hashomayim, Yismechi Hashomayim, V'sugail ha'oretz. And once we sing that, we have from the Heilige Zayda, the Chavas Yuer, he has from all the Yud Beis Tzirufei Avaya, he has a song, and I sing it to that niggin because it starts like that. Oy Yismechi Hashomayim. If you look on Sefaria, you go to Responsa, Havat Yorer, and then in the last tshuva, at the end, he has all the zmiros. So let's start again. It says Yid Beis Tzirufei Havaya, the 12 different permutations of the Tetragrammaton. Oy Yismechi Hashomayim, V'suga horetz. Yoitzer hakol hoidi miskabi. Yisborech v'yishtabachu el hagudol Alohi yuchedim yichad. HaMelech HaKadosh v'Hanayra Yis'aleh ha'oimeh v'oiseh Yisoidos HaKviyim v'Ailov Yaseh Has-Tehilo Hamitis V'chol HaGoyim Haimo Yoidi V'yoimrihi Adonai Hu Elohim Har Yoim V'Laila Giyah Hamashpil Yehir Makayim Mekim Makayim Haborei Mamsi Aha Voyos Yochad Oyis Mechi Hashomayim V'suga El Horetz. There's a lot of nice smears here. This one, the first one is from the same Membeis, which is Shaykh because it's from Maisa Bereshus. Oy Elohim Berech V'Yusi Yedani Tahirasecho Oy Vaitzrifa Ahoy Kudosh Rei Alboini Shivartem Oy Vai Nezifo Noicha Goloi Daiti Yirasicha Baba Kenegdi Samti Besibas tib shisirapso Hoitzari Aiteshiva gomarti Oi chatuai Kvar kimtzila Hoi vaitar Nishuma livo Yirad gefili masecha Pit zakosi kraiva Shavusi kabel v'rachmeini Tzadi yechoini tumid Baruch Shem kvoid malchus olam moed. Just one more from the Heilige Zayde Chavas Yor. Oh no nafshi krevas toido mikdoshecha patsi osti so atomid maglecho pach soitain pitsine seifi yechoini mitzvoi sevecho deirech yushar V'hogin nuchayni soidois yedani mitoyrosecho Urech shaim kvoid malchisoy loylam voed. Just gonna take 1 second. We're gonna try to share this on WhatsApp also. Let's just see if we can do that now. WhatsApp. Alright. So, Lamer. We'll say the Torah because I can't share it on WhatsApp. I tried to, but the recording will share. Mitzvah Shem. So let's first learn a little bit in Yonim. We know, of course, the whole Inyan of Chamisha Bishvat is from Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah, and there really is no source, not in Shas, and not in the Zohar Kodesh, to have a Suda for Chamisha B'Shvat. So why do we do it? Some people say it was invented by the Katshats, but my understanding is that what they call the Seder, that was from the Katshatz, that we don't use. But Stam is like to eat fruit, it's okay. So I want to bring from my holy Zayda, the Chavas Yor, an incredible sefer. It's called Makurkaim. And in the Makurkaim, so it's after Hilchas Chanukah, he mentions Chamisha Bishvat. He says like this. B'tu Bishvat ein neiflon paneim yomi v'chein mincha. So he said, on Tu Bishvat we don't say Tachanun, not on the day and not the mincha, meaning the mincha before. V'chal b'Shabbos ein oimim tzidkos chatzedek. And if Chamisha B'Shvat falls on Shabbos, so by Mincha there's three verses we say after Mincha on a day that otherwise we would say Tachanun if it wasn't Shabbos. We don't say those psukim if it falls on Shabbos. But in Verms, the minig was to say Tachanun on any day that was just a minor holiday, not the real holiday, a day like Chamisha B'Shvat, or a day like, I want it to be a little bit further up, a day like Chamisha B'Shvat, or a day like Lag Boimer, or other days like that, when the Welt doesn't say Tachanun. But in Verms they did say Tachanun. The reason for that was because at one time it was such a big kehillah that every day was a bris or sheva brochas or something like that. So they said any day if there's not a bris or sheva brochas that you could have, you could say Tachanun. They're going to say it because they never said Tachanun. But then once the kehillah got smaller, later on in history, like by this time it was the way the Rabbi Katz, he has a podcast about Jewish history, and he said that the whole Verms in the time of the Chavas Yor was maybe as big as a medium-sized shul in Baltimore. That's the way he said it. So that was the whole kehillah, right? It wasn't any nonsense we have now, people making minyanim in their house, taking away from the kehillah nonsense, worse than nonsense that goes on now in America. But Amola's Gevein Azoi, there was only one kehillah, and even so, they remembered their history that Amola's Gevein, a groisa kehillah, so so for that reason almost never said Tachanun. It's like they say that by the Chzvenish, he had Sandakus by a bris, and it was Hayir, and he said you should say Tachanun anyway, because no one should say that the Chazanish didn't say Tachanun Hayir without saying that he had Sandakus. So he let, even when it was Sandakus, to say Tachanun. So Zelbazach, but when it was Sandakus, they didn't. But Stam is like, even if it was, like I said, if it was Tu B'Shvat, on those days in Verms, they said Tachanun, but the Chavas Yor noted that the Minhag Olam is not to say Tachanun. And then he says like this: "V'reisi vatikin shemavarchen al kol minei peres ilan hinimsois b'tu b'shvat." He said, "I saw vatikin, which seems to mean pious people, like davening vasikin, right? Who would make a bracha on all different fruits of the tree that they could find on Tu B'Shvat." And he says, "Ein Mimogen Avram." Simon Kuf Lamed Aleph Sif Cotton Tes Zoyin, that the Magen Avram brings such a thing, it's a minig to eat fruit on Chamisha B'Shvat. That's what we have here from one of my Rebbeim said that when it says Re'isi V'Sikin, it could mean kat shots. A lot of times the word V'Sikin meant kat shots. But Sof Kol Sof, like we said, that the Seder, that's for sure not kosher, that's from kat shots. But Stamazoi to Achilas Peres, it's not worse than like what Ramosha said about Thanksgiving, right? About you could eat the fruit, you could eat the turkey because you like turkey. So you could eat the fruit because you like the fruit. Even though other times Ramosha and other chuvas said it's a very choshev thing, a day that's dedicated to Hakaras HaTov, the different minhagim. Anyway, so there's a sefer I have here, is Minhagei Vermiza, by Rabbi Yosef Monsbach, who was called Rabbi Yosef Shamus. Because he was a Shamus, he was a Shoichet, and he was a Shamus in the Besmedrish in Verms. And the interesting thing with this sefer, that was the version that was published by Mechon Yerushalayim, also has Hagos, most of which are from the Heilige Zayt of the Chavas Yor. So it's a nice thing to have to see some of the Nyanim that the Chavas Yor brought. So first we'll see what Rabbi Yoshua Shamus, what he said, like this. He said Chamisha Aser Armem Tchina Fil B'Shachris. He said that the minig in Verms was, like we mentioned, that the Zayda brings in the Makurkaim, Al-Gazayda Chavas Yor brings in the Makurkaim, that in Verms the minig was to say Tachanun on Chamish B'Shvat, even though the Velt's minig is not to say Tachanun. He said this is a special celebration day, like a minor celebration of feast day, for the rabbis who are teachers of Befrat Mikre the Dardike, especially for the teachers of the young children in the Cheder. And it's a day of drinking and joy for the teachers and for the students. The Chavas Yor brings in his note on the bottom that even though they say Tachanun by Shachris, he says Shachris Chamish also Menagnin Baruch Benigin Rosh Chodesh. Apparently in Verms, and maybe the Yekas still have such a thing today, that they had a special niggin for Baruch Hu on Rosh Chodesh. And the Chavas Yor brings that was the minig, and it was to sing Baruch Hu to that niggin of the Rosh Chodesh niggin. And he said that the practice was to give the students whiskey and to celebrate with them. The same thing was in Chamisha Asar B'Av. It's the same minig. Chamisha Asar B'Shvat and Chamisha Asar B'Av had the same minig. Ayin Le'el Sim Kuf Chav Tes. Chal Tu B'Shvat Mas B'Shabbos Miskim Neshamas Vermim Tzidkos Chetzedek. So he said that in Verms, if just like they would say, Tachanun, they would also say Avarachamim, or whatever, on again, that's not the Velt's minig, but such a thing. So he doesn't mention here anything about eating fruit, but the Chavas Yor does mention eating the fruit in the Makurkaim. So it's he says Re'isi Vasikin, and it's again, it could be a questionable thing, but self there's a minig of Mishta V'Simcha on Chamisha Asar B'Shvat that seems to be an old Indian, even if it's not something from Shas and Poiskim, not something from the Zohar Kodesh. It's not in the Kisvei Ari, but some people bring it in the name of the Ariya Kodesh. There was such an Indian to eat with Chilas Paris. So we that's what we have. All right. We'll sing Ilan, and then we'll talk something about that. Ilan, 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 Oy bahame havorechecho. Ilon, 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 bahame havorechecho. Oy peiroi secha mesikim, oy tzelcha noeh, v'amas hamayim, oy veres tachtecho. Oy Elo, 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 Ela Yehirot Zayin Shekol Netiyos Shenaitim Mimcha Shekol Netiyos Shenaitim Mimcha Shekol Netiyos Shenaitim Mimcha So we know that's the Gemara Tainus. It's again another Pittsburgher niggin. The Gemara Tainus, we know it compares those two of the Amoraim. They one he gewollt unwünschen, zweiten he wanted to bless the other one, and he said to him, I can compare you to a tree. And he says, tree, how can I bless you? You have a sweet fruit, right? And your shade is pleasant, and there's a stream of water that runs under you. So what can I bless you? What can you give the man who has everything? And the answer is Yirodzain Shekol Natiyah Shenaitim Mimcha Yu Kamoisach. And ungewünscht that all of the saplings that would be drawn from this tree should be just like him. That's an apple. Finish an apple. This is an apple compote. That's not gonna take enough the apple. It's Americana Zach, right? So anyway, happens Chamisha Bishvat, my father's yard site. It was also last 3 years ago when I lost my father. It was Chamisha Bishvat, and it was also Martin Luther King Day, just like today. And it's an interesting thing, you know. We have other famous Gemara in Tainus is Choyne Magel, right? So Choyne Magel, we know the whole story in the Mishnah that there was a drought, and he put they called Choyne Magel means he was a circle maker, and they said, I'm not getting out of this circle, God, until it rains. And it started drizzling, and he said, I don't mean like this. I mean a lot of rain. Then it started pouring. He said, no, wait, we need rain that's going to be really a bracha. I remember I was in Eretz Yisrael. It was also like this year, Shemitah year. It was 21 years ago. It was a Shemitah year. And I remember the whole sky turned like orange. And then it started raining mud. And then we went to sleep. And we got woken up 4 or 5 in the morning. We had to come to the Besmedrash, get buckets because the roof was leaking. We looked out the window, you know, and the streets in Yerushalayim, they were flooded up past the wheels of the Egged buses, and the big garbage dumpster. It was like a little toy boat in the bathtub. And then, you know, by 10 o'clock in the morning, there weren't even any puddles. You know, someone said if you don't like the weather in Eretz Yisrael, you wait 5 minutes. You know, so they told us after that it was Shemitah, right? They said all the farms that weren't keeping Shemitah, their crops were destroyed by this flood, and all the farms that were keeping Shemitah, they were gebenched. This every Shemitah year, they see stories like this. Like after they made the Medina, Rachmana litzlan, they said that in Koimimius, well, not just in Koimimius, there was Makas Arba, there was grasshoppers, locusts attacked Eretz Yisrael, and they attacked all the farms that weren't keeping Shemitah. But in Koimimius, where the Erlich Eden, they kept Shemitah. Not one grasshopper was found there in Koimimius. Anyway, the point I was saying about the rain, so they said that by Chayne Magil, so Sovkos he said, no, I don't mean the drizzling and I don't mean the pouring, I mean Gishmei Brucha, Gebenchte Regen. And so he's given. They said until it came to 11 or time, a Bekannte Mishnah. So the Gemara tells the story. It's like much later we have upstate New York, right? There was Washington Irving told the story of Rip Van Winkle. Long time before that, of course, we had Bayin Zidin, we had Chayne Magil. And the mice of Chayne Magil was that he saw a Yid, a man was planting a carob tree. We don't have today carob. We usually like to have in Chamisha Bishvat carob, boxer. I don't have any today. I didn't see any in Monroe. I think they say also it's hot oak farms and that they're not selling at ShopRite. The figs I could get at ShopRite. So anyway, a man was planting a carob tree. Chayne Magil said to him, "Why are you planting a carob tree? It won't bear fruit for 70 years. So what's the point? You're never going to eat from this fruit." So the man, he said to Chayne Magil, he said, "When I was born, there were carob trees that my grandparents planted, and so I'm planting this tree for my grandchildren, even if I won't eat the fruit of this tree." And we know the story. Chayne Magil, he went to sleep. He woke up 70 years later, and the tree had plants, and the tree had fruit, and he saw the goats had great grandchildren, and he went to the Bismedrish, and he was so confused because it was a big, visa heistis, a generation gap, and he comes, but they said that when they mentioned to him they mentioned the Bismedrish that this halacha is so clear, like it was in the time of Chayne Magil, then he was beroikt because he heard that his name is still being mentioned 70 years later, and we know the whole story. Aus gebeten soll starben, or chavrisa mitisa, bekannte Gemara. So today's Martin Luther King Day. So King, he was a shtickle like a Chayne Magil, and it chapped that not only he was that also the founders of this country were also like that Indian, that they planted trees that they would not necessarily enjoy the shade from that tree. Meaning, we know Jefferson, against his will, had slaves, but he didn't want to have slaves. He wanted to get rid of slavery. He did whatever he could to get rid of slavery. He wanted to put in the Declaration of Independence that his was upset at the British royal government forcing slavery to continue in the Americas, and he had tainas on that. That was Jefferson. He didn't have the choilis like Washington when he was nifter. He freed the slaves, right? Or when Martha passed away, they freed the slaves. Jefferson, the law was if you had debts, you couldn't do that. So he didn't even have the possibility to do that because he died with so many chayvas. It was a big bal chayv. But we're all balei chayv to Jefferson. And Jefferson planted the tree that grew to have Lincoln free the slaves. And the same thing You know, there are changes through. Take whatever you want. You had esrig, so the this is what we're talking about here. That we got freed, the world gets better, and we plant the trees. That it's not always we're going to enjoy the shade of that tree. We're not always going to enjoy the fruit of that tree, but we still plant the trees. And King, he said, there's no tree, nothing. If you would cover a tree with silver and gold, a green tree is always more beautiful because it's made by God. Because he was a Galach, so he understood these things. And he was friends with a lot of rabbis, Dr. King. And he also said, if you can't be a tree, you be a bush. If you can't be a road, you be a path. You have to have the sense of somebodiness. It's a big thing that King talked about. And so this, we remember with the Paris, is Inyan. So how does that go back to what we said, the Gemara in of Elon Bamavrecha. So it's like this. We know whether it's true or not. We're not going to talk about this now. But the secular world, they have an idea of evolution, and that if generally, with the way it's understood, is that if a species is well adapted, its body plan doesn't change very much throughout the Doros. But if it needs to adapt to a new environment, especially if the environment changes, then the progeny are different than the ancestors. So this is the Inyan we're talking about here. Meaning, when you say that all the saplings that come from you should be like you. It's like the crocodiles. They're again, we'll use it as a mashal. I'm not saying this is true. I'm saying the mashal based on the teachings of evolution is a crocodile, right? The body plan hasn't changed for millions of years. Why? Because it's a good plan. It works the way it's supposed to work. It's something that's adaptable to the environment as long as it stays in that semi-aquatic environment. And so even though there's slight changes through the history, Sof Kol Sof doesn't change. But when the environment changes, when the situation changes, and therefore, and again, this tree, it's not only the etzem of the tree, that perisecha mesuchim etzel chanoah, that the fruits are sweet and the shade is pleasant, but also the environment of the tree. The amos hamayim iveres tachtecho. That the environment is that there's a stream, a creek of water that's going under a tach, that's getting into the boim, right? I don't know if we would. I saw we had some Hasidish guests here, so I don't know if I should say English or Yiddish. Anyway, so if there wasn't the meaning, so if there's a natia there's a planting from the tree, right? So the planting from the tree comes. If it goes somewhere, it's a different type of environment. It will have to adapt to a different type of an environment. But if it remains in the same type of environment, it will remain in that type of environment. And so Mavinchtun, that we have a sustainable environment that will make it that when we go into, not that the environment should remain, and that the milas should remain as well, because if not, something can go extinct if it doesn't have the proper environment, and if it doesn't have the proper adaptations. And so the same thing, if we live in a world that's a good environment, ish tachas inosei, ish tachas gafnoi, ish tachas gafnoi, ish tachas tenosei, right? Vinstun, that each man under his fig tree. Can you turn that down? He's under the fig tree. He's under his. He has his own fig tree. He has his own. Wie soll heißt? His own geffen. His own. Weintraub. How do you say? The vine, the grapevine. I heard it through the grapevine, right? A person, he has the grapevine, and he has the fig tree. He has the house with the garage and the kids and the wife and kids and everything. He's living in a good, sustainable environment that the human being is adapted to. So that's the type of thing we want to preserve and conserve. When things are negative, we have to adapt and evolve away from those environments. So if we notice that there's a chisoron, we notice there's something that needs to be fixed, like this story, meaning a boxer boy, a carob tree. You gotta excuse me, I had my accent the other day, so I'm a little addled. So the carob tree, even though it takes 70 years to bloom, doesn't live forever, right? So the grandparents have to plant the carob trees for the grandchildren, and the grandchildren, then they become the grandparents, and they plant the carob trees for their grandchildren, and so too throughout history. But sometimes there's something you have to get rid of, and you have to plant trees that are to make maybe you're in a place that has no carob trees. Forget about that the carob trees that are there aren't going to exist forever. You have a place that doesn't have any carob trees. Then you plant those trees. You do a favor for the community. And that's what we're talking about here. Meaning, why is Martin Luther King Day such a quintessential American holiday? And what is the kesher that today is Chamisha Bishvat? Because King understood that the founders, he was taking the promissory note, right? He was collecting the promissory note. That's the way he expressed himself. I mean, he understood that we're Bali Choiv, that Jefferson aligns Gevein of Bal Choiv, and we're Bali Choiv to Jefferson, but also we're also the creditors for Jefferson. When Jefferson died as a Bal Choiv, as someone who was a debtor, we have to collect on that credit. But we also have to make our own debts so our children can collect on that credit. And our grandchildren. Meaning even if you plant that tree in the desert and you won't enjoy its fruit and you won't enjoy its shade, so self with that, we plant the trees like Choyne Magel saw. The Yid planting the tree so the next generation can have the shade. And so that's the Indian, and there were a lot of Yidden, a lot of rabbis who marched with Dr. King because they understood the choiv that he's collecting on, his dream. He said he saw himself like Moshe Rabbeinu looking over in Parshas V'zois HaBrocha, right? That I've seen the promised land, and I'm not going to go over, but you're going to go over. And so there's a kesher. I know our friend here says no kesher. Everything is a kesher. Everything, he said even worse. Everything is a kesher. Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh said whatever you see in the world, and one thing is connected to other, is all to remind us of Barna Shloilo. And so this inyan of planting those trees that we ourselves are not going to have to be able to eat the fruit from them. We might not be able to eat the fruit, but our Einiklach will eat from the fruit. You have to be able to make that situation possible in order to make this world a better place. And that's the inyan. We hear that the people on the left, they mean very well. They talk of the inyan of Tikkun Olam. The idea of L'sakein Olam L'malchus Shakai means to fix the whole world for Mashiach, for the kingdom of the Almighty. And the thing is, really, we're Masakin, we eat the fruit, that's a Tikkun. These types of things. It's not always the way that people see it. The small things are what comes to change. Like, we tell the story always, Soreimani, it says that the Malachim came to Avram Avinu and asked, where's Sarah, your wife? He says, Hine ba'oil. He says, behold, she is in the tent. And we say from there, the whole Inyan Mashiach and everything comes from that. Why? Because we know the pasuk says, it says, says, Amani Mayavi Loyavai Bakalashem. And I guess we'll finish with this because I got to call back to Shiva. Amani Mayavi Loyavai Bakalashem. But so Chazal say it's only the males, but a Moaviyah can come into Kalashem. Then later Chazal say that there is no such thing as a Moavi or a Moini anymore. They're extinct because they become assimilated. And so everyone could be a ger now. So Chazal were more inclusive. And we should tell that story also because it's shaykh to Martin Luther King Day. So the other story of Shmai and of Talion. But anyway, when it says, where do we get the idea that's Mayabi v'le Mayabiyah? Because the pasuk says, Amonim Mayabi lo yavi b'kal Hashem, afilu ador asiri, ki lo yekdimcha b'leichem u'mayim b'derech. Says the reason why the Ammonites and the Moabites were forbidden, they could convert, but they couldn't marry into the Kal Hashem, into the congregation of the Lord, because they did not greet you, even to the 10th generation, means forever, because they did not greet you in the desert, on the road, with bread and water. So Chazal say that it's not the Derech HaNoshim, it's not sneezdik for the women to go bring to the men bread and water. Even though the Moaviyos, we know they were not sneezdik. We know the Gemara says gefährliche things. But sof kol sof, they were the absolute opposite of tznius. But because of this, they said the women were not expected to be on a higher standard of hachnasas orachim than Soreimani. Meaning, if Soreimani was Soreimani didn't bring the bread to, meaning Avram Avinu, he was sick. It was Shlish Lamila. It was the third day after his circumcision, the most painful day. But he didn't make his wife serve the men. He served them, and so that's the Indian. So we don't hold the Moabite women to a higher standard of hospitality than Soreimani, and that's why um, Ruth was kosher, was mutalavei b'kol. That's why David HaMelech is a kosher Eid. That's why Mashiach and the whole Klal Yisrael that comes from David HaMelech. I'm also from David HaMelech. But what I'm saying is, it's from my mother's side, so I'm not from Malchus based of it, but I'm also from that lineage, going back, not direct, but it's from my ancestry. The David HaMelech was a Yid because was a kosher Yid, and the Mashiach can come and everything because Saramenu, her tiny little thing that she did every day, and she could have done a little different. She could have said, "Oh, my husband is in pain. I'll go serve these men." She didn't know they were angels, and she wouldn't do it. And Avram Avinu didn't let her do it, and because of that, Mashiach could come. It's the same thing. I'm not saying again that was that culture in that time. It depends where you live. You know, if you're in Yerushalayim, usually, or in Williamsburg or Monroe, usually the women they're in the kitchen, and they leave it, and the men bring the food out sometimes if you have guests. In other places, I don't know, Borough Park or Muncie or Five Towns, it's different. You know, everybody has their own Up West Side. Everybody has their own minhag. I'm not saying everybody has to be like Surah Maini. She was in her culture in her time. But the point I'm saying is that Kleinigkeit is what brought Mashiach, and we all are big enough that whatever we do can bring Mashiach. A little minor thing, just living our lives. So I want to tell a story. The Gemara says in Yuma. I tell this a lot, but I think it's Kedai because St. Martin Luther King Day to show Judaism is not a religion that's racist. Again, we have it's a hemshech of this that Rus was allowed in. And not only that, but afterwards, the Gemara says about Ger Mayavi is mutalovay b'kal Hashem because they're not in the same place. So the same thing. The Gemara says that the Gemara says that it was Moshe Yom Kippur, and the Kohen Gadol he made it out right, and he was walking home, and they were begleiting the Kohen Gadol. You know, there was a whole procession to walk the high priest home after the Day of Atonement, and the Kohen Gadol in the throng was Shemayin of Talion. They were the two biggest Gedolim. The Kohen Gadol was a Pashut Kohen Gadol. You know, wasn't a special person, and some people were gathering around. Shemayin of Talion, and I'll finish this up. So the Shemayin of Talion, they said, Shemayin of Talion, they said, oh, the Kohen Gadol saw the people were gathering around Shemayin of Talion, and Shemayin of Talion, they were Gerim or B'nai Gerim, and the Kohen Gadol said, oh, Shalom Alecha B'nai Amim, you know, they were from Sencheriv. He said, peace be unto ye, you children of heathens. So then the Shemayin of Talion said, better we, the children of heathens, who make the Uvda the Aaron, who act like Aaron a Kohen, than you, a son of Aaron a Kohen, who is not who is not making Uvda the Aaron. So that's the Indian there. That Judaism is not about racism. It's about, like King said, not the color of your skin, but the content of your character. And this is the danger we see now. The Democrats, they're saying all that matters is the color of the skin. The party's never flipped. They have the CRT that says that if you're colorblind, you're racist. It doesn't make any sense. The opposite. I mean, you know, you hear it. That you know, but that's the Mishigas. They're fighting. They're like Malcolm X before the Hajj. You know, once he went to the Hajj, he wasn't racist anymore, right? Because he learned. But before he was, you know, he might have had certain points, but that's on a microcosm, not the macrocosm. But this is they're pushing. It's the opposite of everything that Dr. King was pushing. So the Irish will help, that we should Taka get to Paris. We'll end off with the one Vahoyo Ka'ed Shosol al Palge Mayim Asher Perioitain Bitoy Violayo Yibo Vichol Asher Yase Yatzliach. One more. Ki v'simcho seit seyonu v'sholem tuvolun harim be'agbois yivtchu lifnechem rina v'chol atzei asoda yimchochav. That's I was at the grave of William Seward, and on his tombstone he has that pasuk from Yeshayahu that when joy you'll go out, and then ki v'simcho seit seyonu v'sholem tuvolun, with peace you'll be gathered in. The mountains and the hills will all break out in song. And all the trees of the field, they're going to clap their hands, looking forward. The koyach of simcha, and this is like we said from the minhagei vermiza. It's the day of Mishnah v'simcha. I didn't have any whiskey, didn't have any alcohol today at all, because I'm thinking I might want to go to Tish in Vishnitz. I don't know. It's a little bit of the roads. I'm not sure how good the roads are. But maybe we'll go out. But anyway, through the koyach of simcha, we could get out of everything. So we should take chaparai and koyach of simcha, and that koyach. Then again, we create that environment of where the parasecha yukamoisach. That if it's an environment of simcha, that's like the amas hamayim versus tachtecho. So we should be zoiche to all simchas and good things, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. A very happy Chamisha Bishvat and a good year.